Welcome to the August 16th, 1:30 p.m. City Council meeting. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer by Councilwoman Kim Perez. Sorry. I shouldn't have took a nap. Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father God, we just thank you for today. And Lord, I just thank you that we can laugh and we can enjoy one another, Lord, because I know that a merry heart does good like medicine. And so, Father, I thank you for this council. I thank you for the leadership in this city, Lord, and every branch that consists of it. And Father, as we come together, I ask, Lord, that you would give us the spirit of wisdom to be able to do your plans and purposes in this city. And Lord, I pray that each branch would come together, Lord God, and we would be unified, because there you command the blessing. Mm-hmm. So Father, we bless this city, we bless the citizens, Lord, and we just give you all the praise and glory for today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You're welcome. And at this time, we will have questions and comments from any citizen that would like to speak. And I see none, so we'll just move on to the city manager's monthly report.
So you'll see a few little changes in your charts, so your financial charts, but everything's still good on track. We're still revenue in both the general fund and sewer fund is above budgets, and expenditures or revenue is above our expenditures. Of course, they're both above because we've been doing well. You'll notice on water sewer fund that the expenses jumped up. That's because we made our debt payment in the month of July, so you know those are a one-time payment. And if you look in the little dash line for the average, you see that they do make that jump. So we've made our debt payment on all of that. It's paid a little earlier in general fund. Sales tax was up again, just a little bit. We've already got our August payment, and it was up. July's payment was about flat, but overall, we're still averaging a 14% increase year over year for our sales tax collections. So that's good for both the city and for our economic development operations. You'll also see that hotel motel tax collection has remained pretty strong, and we've now collected more than our budgeted amount with 2 more months to go. So we'll in probably with a little bit of fund balance there, which will give us some cushion on both our dome debt payment and our venue payments. So that's been pretty good. And you see that we've started working down the tourism fund balance just a little bit as we start paying for the last little bits of the dome, as that fund balance was part of the plan to offset the debt issuance for the dome. So as we get into our other issues or other projects, the dome project is now for the most part finished, other than anything with a computer chip. So the last things we're waiting on are things with computer chips in it. So that is, if you remember, we've got a fancy full color outdoor sign, message sign coming in at some point. And we're still waiting on our control chips for our ballroom sound and AV controls. Those are still in the September-ish plan, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes.
Garrett, on the, are they still doing checkpoints like maybe water leaks or something like that?
Yeah, well, Nicole she's got the name for the contractor, so when
Okay.
we've got a 1-year warranty period, and they've been out there. We had to clean up the water lines from sand here a couple weeks ago, and there's been some little things, but they've still working through the punch list and still keeping up with the maintenance items.
Okay.
So I know one of those, somebody ran over one of the sprinkler heads, I think, and
Were they playing in the grass? Okay, never mind. Jeez.
ran over it, stepped on it, something, but, you know, for the most part, I think they've been staying on pretty good. Chris has, I think, been pretty responsive to her needs when we find something on that, so they're staying on that. We're slowly getting things lined out. They did get the rest of the foam dome panels installed last week.
Oh, they did finish that?
Good.
They were
All the dome panels are now?
All the dome in.
Okay, great.
And so that's all consistent in there. So I know that if Nicole's surprised, I'm surprised, but she's been inundated with a significant amount of requests, and I think the facility is being received quite well and is going. being used pretty well as well. So we're still working through some operational things there, as we knew we would with such a new facility. But that project is pretty much into the maintenance phase and just cleanup phase. So that one's just kind of to the side, which is good because we do have our Main Street sewer, the next Main Street sewer project has gone out to bid. And so if you remember, we're bidding from 4th Street to 1st Street with part of that as an additive alternative in case, like I said, I'm a little concerned of what the bids are coming in, so I'm giving us a little bit of flexibility to try to hit budget standards, but that will include that last section of, it definitely will include the 300 block, which is collapsed, and it'll include a portion of the 200 block. If we get favorable bids, we'll go ahead and do all the way to 1st Street, which will be the last of the concrete line in that section. So that's out to bid. I expect that on a council agenda next month.
And we're timing that in the winter?
That one doesn't necessarily really matter. It's the 10th Street that we're trying to get started so that the concrete work can hit in the winter. And so Park Hill was here this week walking 10th Street as they finalize the plans on that. I have been in contact with TxDOT. We're finalizing the new maintenance agreement and the payment process for that part, so that should be coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We do anticipate hopefully bidding out 10th Street sometime in September. And Park Hill's thinking that if we get it bid out early enough, a lot of those street work contractors, they don't have a lot of winter work because, all the pavement work has to be done in certain temperatures when it's warm. And so their workload generally goes down in the fall. Since this has got a lot of concrete and regrading, and there's a lot of work that can be done in the winter that isn't impacted as much by temperature, that we're hoping that maybe we can get a little favorable bid and get this moving on and on schedule. So it's got about if the contractor can maintain the schedule, there's about a 10-month construction period for this project from project start to, most of the pavement being laid. So, it'll be a bit of a interruption, but Park Hill will be back once we have the final plans going door to door with the businesses as we kind of plan and get some feedback on timing and engagement with that. So we are getting ready to have those plans and get the community involved a little bit on what's going on there.
How far east are we going on that?
We're going from Cedar Street to Main Street.
Okay.
And so it is a pretty substantial project. We're having to regrade some areas of the street. We're going to relocate a little section of water line along 10th Street in the area of Main. It's a little shallow, so, we're going to go ahead and deepen that a little bit while we're there so that we don't have to.
And they're going to do the Megret.
And the Megret parking lot is included in that as well, yes.
And will they do it in sections or?
Luckily, the road is wide enough to support 2
Oh,
lanes.
okay. I think I remember you saying that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right, so right now, without talking to the businesses, but we'll fine tune that after we talk with them, but the goal is probably to start on the north half of the street, which will leave the south half accessible through the Christmas season.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And so, you've got the businesses in Megret, it's easy to access from 10th Street on the other side. The businesses along 10th Street, most of them are on the south side, so we figured it'd be better to give them the bigger headache a little bit after the holiday season so that we don't interfere quite as much with their holiday season. But I do think it's like any street project, there's not really a good way to do it. The final result's almost always worth it, but man, you do debate while you're dealing with the mess.
Yeah, for sure.
And, the street department's getting a bit of that right now as we go through the seal coating project.
Yes, they are.
I know that it's inconvenient, but there's just not really a good way of dealing with that. Keep in mind that the chip sealing is 1/10 of the cost of milling and overlaying.
Yeah.
So just Evergreen Street yesterday, chip sealing that is about $60,000. To mill and overlay that entire stretch is about $380,000. And so if you look at Bryan Street, McGee Street, Hedgecote that we did last year, the end result is much improved.
Yeah.
If we just, kind of deal with it, for the next week or so. I know we did get some calls about some of the loose rock. We know there's still loose rock. We will continue to sweep and we'll clean it up on the sidewalks and stuff too, but, we're going 3 days hot and heavy to get it seal coated, then they'll come back up and kind of clean up with the loose rock because we're partnering with the county, so we do have some time constraints to make sure that we get it all laid. I know there were some questions about why we don't do it in segments. Keep in mind, once that oil truck starts moving and that asphalt goes down, it's harder, and the amount of time it takes to stop that
Yeah.
is not as easy as people would think, and you don't want a cold joint. And so where you stop, if you come back then later and try to pick back up, you end up with an area that doesn't set as well. So it is easy, it is better. I know it might seem like an inconvenience for the residents, but it is better for the truck to go in one straight line for the whole swath and come back and do a lane at a time. But we are doing much better this year than we did last year. Both the streets department and the county learned, so the not near as much loose rock, and it's gone down, I think, a lot smoother. They have also been using the steel roller this year to get it embedded a little bit more. But, if we had milled it, we'd have to shut the street down for a couple of days while you milled it before you overlaid it too. So not only is it more expensive, it's not any quicker. So, but we'll get it cleaned up and get all that looking as well as we can. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. It is what it is, but in the end, it's going to be much better. Again, we do have in the CIP plan, the 5-year listing of what streets are going to get that. We're back to this time, everybody's like, well, why those streets? Why not our streets? Keep in mind that Evergreen, because it's one of the main feeders into that residential area, is one of the higher traffic count streets. It's also next to the school, which drives the traffic counts up. Union / Wilson, another high traffic street. So, just kind of bear with us as we start getting through those. But
Well, there was a study done on it.
Right.
And you are doing it toward that
Right.
study. So, I mean, really, if they just would, realize that.
Right, and like I said, this is a multi-year project. We will eventually get to every street, but, it's not that we're random and all of that. There is some thought behind it. I know it might not seem like that. And we've had to, Main Street, the rest of Main Street was on there last year, but there's been some other things we've had to delay because it needs more repair work before we chip seal it. So we don't want to chip seal knowing that it needs that repair work. So Broadmoor was actually on this budget year, but it's got some repair work that needs to be done. So we'll defer that to chip seal next year so that we can get it sealed, get it crack sealed and get those spots repaired this year. But I know that they're finishing out, they should finish up with the seal coating project Wednesday, today's Tuesday. But it is going, I just did kind of want to let that. We are still waiting on our test well contractor to get up to the northwest well field. No, I've probably said that for like 3 months now, but every time we call them, it's, well, in the next week or two, we'll be up there in the next week or two. That's been the answer for the last 6 months. But at some point, they will get up there, but I think with the price of fuel coming down, I think that's probably good for us to defer that just a little bit. A big cost in the cost of drilling a well is the fuel to actually run the equipment. So I'm not completely upset that that's getting delayed just a little bit, but you will see as we go through the budget that those expenses are getting punted off into next year. So as we go through departments now, that's pretty much all of our big projects at least, that are going on. Planning and development. We did finally get our new code enforcement guy started this week, Stephen Kimbley, so he's getting a crash course on how some of that is going, especially after the recent rain. So he's, never understood how weeds can grow so fast with just a little bit of,
I can.
I wish my grass grew like that.
Really.
But he started. We are finalizing the plat for the Tidal Wave Car Wash. You've probably seen their sign out on their lot, so hopefully that'll move forward here shortly. We are in the new ULDO now, so as I kind of warned y'all, the council will not have final approval of plats anymore. The Planning and Zoning Commission will make those approvals, which is what they're designed for. Not necessarily that we don't want the council to do that, but state laws changed, especially in high-growth areas, because the development process was taking so long. They've given cities now 30 days to approve plats from the time that they're submitted. So for us to get the Planning and Zoning Commission and the council and staff to review it in 30 days, it's just not practical. So not that we don't want you to see it, we're keeping you all in the loop and all of that, but you also do appoint a Planning and Zoning Commission for that particular task. So that will be happening pretty soon. We do have plans for the renovations currently going on for Burke's and Houston Station. That's Burke's going into the old Bells and Houston Station going into the old Aaron's. We have lost a part-time alley crew member that we're trying to fill as well, so that might slow down a little bit. And of course, Tractor Supply and HTO continue to work, and we continue to handle their inspections and things for that. So over in the communications department, of course, you've seen Deidre's been pretty busy on Facebook and with all these events and stuff going on, so we've definitely been involved in the community in the last 6 weeks or so, both with the police, fire department, and other agencies. She also started putting together an event list. I don't know if you saw that event list that came out on Facebook here a while back, and we're going to start circulating that as part of the Boomtown Beat newsletter, so we're going to try to do that quarterly event list in the water bill inserts. And we'll just remind everybody, this Friday night at 9:30 p.m. at Huber Park, we'll be showing Encanto in the park. It's kind of ending the summer, so Recreation's working on that. They will have popcorn from the Morley. So if you're looking for something to do and something to keep your kids occupied, that'll be a good event this Friday. Yeah, because, it's still kind of summer, so we need to get a little dark before you can see that projector out there, so. Problem is it's much more time convenient in the winter, but then it's normally too cold. Of course, in the city secretary's office and the court, Linda's, we're still working on getting Linda's position transition and getting some of her stuff set up. Some of that come with the phone system that's on the consent agenda today, and as we get her kind of trained and coordinated over there. But she is out there, and so she's greeting everybody when you walk in through the lobby. I do think it makes a big, nice improvement to have that window open, to have somebody greeting you when you come through the door. And the court's been working pretty hard to get the docket kind of caught up. I think they're finally starting to see progress from, if you remember during COVID, the state Supreme Court had suspended all court proceedings, in-person court proceedings, for about 18 months. So we had a lot of things backing up over 18 months, but they've been working pretty good with that. In the fire department, they did their CPR training last month and actually trained some of the city staff and county employees on CPR and first aid so that we could be better prepared to respond in our public facilities. They also, both the fire department and police department, helped cook hot dogs for the Boots and Badges blood drive that we had out at the youth center. And both the police department and the fire department have been pretty wet this last month, as they've had their water gun fights with the park rec kids and the summer library kids. So, I guess the firemen might be used to being wet, but I don't know that the cops are quite so used to that. But we also did lose one recruit in the one fire recruit due to some issues that he couldn't meet, but he's going to try to improve on that to come back and apply again. The other recruits in the last week of the fire academy, so we hope to get him passed and on shift pretty soon. So we do still keep working through some of those. Of course, in the police department, they did complete 3 certified hires last month, so we hired the 2 SROs. Actually, Scott Jordan and Terry Webster came back, so we completed their hire in time for school to start Monday, so we will have all 4 SRO positions staffed for the start of the school year. And I know that the school was pretty glad to get those 2 back, and we're glad to have everybody back and working there. And we did hire 1 more patrol officer. The police recruits, the 4 recruits down in the police academy, in their last 2 weeks, they will be taking the TCOL test in about 2 weeks. And so once they graduate, and assuming they all pass, which I have absolute confidence they will be finally full strength in the police department again.
That's good.
Which that's been the first time in almost 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a while, so we are making progress there. Both the police department and dispatch survived our new CAD implementation and RMS implementation, so that's been going pretty well. I did send y'all a picture in one of your emails of how that CAD integrates with the radio GPS locations and how that all is kind of working together, and I know that's greatly increased our awareness and safety of our first responders, and so we're glad to see that's kind of come together. I'm sure there's probably still some whispers under their breath of, learning some new things and trying to remember some of that stuff, but I think that's probably all of that. Also do kind of want to recognize what the police department does kind of behind the scenes every now and then, that remember, we don't post everything, but they work all the time. If you remember, there was a news story a couple of weeks ago about a Borger person that was sentenced for drug charges on federal charges and given a pretty lengthy sentence. That did originate out of a case started with our police department that was handed over to the Drug Enforcement Agency. So we are working with those federal agencies to keep working on that. And so that's kind of going, we keep that in the background mostly, but I do want everybody to know that we are continuing to work on that. And that's important. Of course, animal control, their big news of the last month was Sheba, the stolen dog from Baytown. And so that, I think, they had a microchipping event, and no, we were not microchipping your children. Although apparently the way that it was worded, some people thought we were kid printing and microchipping your children. But we were there to microchip your pets, and I think after the success of Sheba, the animal control, they microchipped 72 pets that day and actually ran out of microchips. So if you need a microchip, you might have to wait a couple of days till we get some more of those in, but that was a successful event. We've done 3 kid print events in the last month, and each one of those has averaged about 30 kids coming through that. And, getting your fingerprints and a picture taken so that if something should ever happen to your child, you've got something to give the police or help us go forward through. So definitely pleased with the community involvement we've seen out of our public safety agencies in the last month with National Night Out, and then involvement with all of those. So they've definitely been out there, and if you haven't had a chance to interact with them, it's probably because you've been staying home.
Right.
Which, depending, it's not always bad either.
And they're doing a little extra patrolling of the park, correct?
Correct, and they are working that case. There'll be some news on that probably later this week, but, we're trying to keep a little bit of that under wraps as we get all the details, make sure that we've got everything done, but that's probably close to being rectified.
But I know we, kind of had talked about.
Right, and they
some of
are,
the citizens.
keep in mind right now that we still have 2 officers in field training and 4 short, so you're
Yeah.
6 patrol officers short from having fully independent shifts. So, proactive patrol a lot of times is the first thing to go when you get short, because you're tied going from call to call to call. If you're answering the calls, you can't patrol.
Right.
And so that's why some of that's taking, and I know we've talked about different ordinances and regulations. In this particular instance, I don't think that would have helped anything, because we still wouldn't have had the available officer to go and enforce it. So that's why I point out so much that we are getting close to being full strength, but keep in mind, those 4 recruits, they get 3 months of field training before they get released after they come off the academy, but we are moving that way. So we are, at least for the first time in a while, seeing
Yeah.
progress and maybe a little bit of light. Morale at the police department and fire department both seems to be pretty good right now, I think, so we don't have, other than a little bit of what I would consider normal turnover, I think we both are
Right.
optimistic of retention improvements, at least in the short term too, so I think we'll get some benefit out of that.
Most municipalities are short police officers far, far worse than we are at this point.
Garland, Texas right now is offering a $10,000 signing bonus to certified officers to move to Garland. Of course, a lot of times you see a lot of those cities that offer hiring bonuses, that can be a slap in the face to the officers that are still
Yeah, absolutely.
there working for you. So if they get $10,000 because they're coming here, I've been here I've committed and I don't get anything. So if you've noticed, we've kind of taken the opposite approach. We've given the COVID bonuses, we've increased pay grades, and done some more on longevity, and that has stabilized the loss, which then makes it easier to fill in the back. And I think we're getting a lot of the same benefits, but by taking care of our current employees and those that have committed to us versus just trying to get anybody through the door. And of course, the Metroplex is a little different area, is where everybody is in, but I do think we're finally starting to get above water over there. Public Works, of course, the street department's been busy with the seal coating this week. I know we still get a lot of complaints about alleys and gas and water cuts. I would just kind of remind everybody, there are a lot of those right now, and the gas cuts, they're not small. They're large, and keep in mind that we have a minimum amount of asphalt that we can buy, and we have minimum days that we can buy. And so we can, for the most part, depending on what the asphalt plant's doing, dictates when we can get asphalt. So it's not like we can patch every single day of the week, which throws us behind. So we do know they're out there, and we're trying to get to them as quick as we can. I do understand the inconvenience, but unless this council's ready to buy a $2.5 million asphalt plant and hire about $400,000 worth of salary to operate it every year, we're kind of stuck with what we are. But I do think we're making progress and getting better about that as well. Public Works Department's also been really great in the last month of supporting all the public events, that both the Freedom on Main, the Back to School Fair, and all the other things that's been going on, parks, streets, and whoever, and solid waste. they don't have to do that, and they've been stepping up for that, and I appreciate that. Manny Padilla in the Parks Department got a big pat on the back for his work at the Back to School Fair this weekend, and I kind of wanted to call him out on that. So they were quite pleased with his work, and we're glad that he gave up a Saturday for that. And we are trying to recognize it and make sure that they're compensated for what they do for our community. But that doesn't mean you have to be as responsive and get as many complaints as compliments as you do, so that they do need to be recognized for that. So I'm excited to see everybody step up as we do more of those. We do have one of our new dump trailers in solid waste is on the lot. It'll be here shortly, and another one's coming. If you remember, we took some of our excess revenue, and we've purchased 2 more dump trailers for the self-help solid bulk waste self-help program. So that's finally, I think, caught on and been doing really well. The 2 trailers we have are pretty much, they're out very, very frequently. And so, of course, that does seem to be working better for us than the roll-offs, and does seem to be more flexible for the residents as well. So we're glad to see that going. We are still waiting on the controller for the splash pad at Huber Park. You know, there again, it's computer-controlled stuff. So as much as we would like that to be back in full operation, it is still on a limited schedule based on when we're manually turning it on and manually turning it off. And I know it might be frustrating when you show up there and it's not on, but if it's after hours, it's just gonna be what it is. We can't meet everybody's schedule, but hopefully that'll be here soon. We do have, as we talked about the budget, we do have another splash pad budgeted in next budget year for Buena Vista Park, so that hopefully we can give some other options there. Vehicle Service Center's got another Purple Wave auction round set up as we get rid of, we got some more of our new trucks in, so we'll be selling some more of that. Recreation has finished for the year. We had another very successful season with Park Rec. I think everything went really well there. If you talk by, and of course the pool is now closed for the season as well, so we're excited about that. But now that gives Manny and Isaac some time to plan other recreation events coming into the fall. We'll be coming up with some new hours for the youth center here shortly, and of course, like I said, they're getting ready for the movie in the park later Friday night. OEM, they had the fire chiefs meeting at the Dome on July 20th, and they're still continuing to plan for their regional emergency meeting at the Dome later this summer. They had 294 kids in the summer reading program that participated in our water fight events. And so Jason did a good job kind of being Jason Pender. I forget I've got to specify Jasons in that department. Apparently you have to be named Jason to work in OEM. But Jason Pender's been good coordinating all that. And of course, we have started the radar project that after the bid award last month with Pantex, so we're excited to see that. IT's been working pretty hard on the CAD implementation and then getting things ready for the phone system upgrade that's on the consent agenda that we budgeted for this year. And then the dispatch, of course, they've been quite busy, because the CAD changeovers impacted them more than anybody, so we've changed a lot of things for them, but they've responded quite well to that. And of course, the plant, the new Phillips 66 plant manager got a tour of the EOC this week, so it's always good to reach out to our industries. In utilities, the Rock Creek plant, we've got everything in we need for them to make their final connection for the to the city water system that we approved that contract for a while back, so they're getting ready to do that. We've set a new meter for Nutrien out at their new lab/support building, so we're still working with them. Again, we're waiting on those test holes. The sewer crew is still vacuuming daily at the manhole on 4th Street. And then the water plant has hired a new operator to replace one that we lost. So that's good. And then finance, of course, I did notify you of our refund that we're going to have to do for the sales tax. A company, the taxpayer overpaid from 2017 to 2020, so the state's refunded that, and now we have to refund the state. So we'll be doing that in monthly distributions for the next 24 months, just to make sure that our numbers look even. And the auditor, our current auditor has contacted our future auditor, and we've heard back from them, and they are working on getting their timeline worked out to finish the 2021 audit. They do both use the same software, so that should streamline some issues, and so we hope to hear a better timetable into this week, early next week, but they have been communicating, so I feel maybe a little better that we'll get some movement there. Other than that, questions or anything I can ask or answer?
I don't think so.
I don't have any.
So if not, then we'll move on to the consent items 6 through 10. Does anyone have anything to ask or anything on them? If not, then we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we'll approve consent items 6 through 10.
Second.
All in favor? And it passes. Item 11, consider and take appropriate action on Resolution R-018-22 pertaining to the Southwest Public Service Company's application to implement a surcharge to recover revenue from the true-up period of SPS's 2021 base rate case. Mr. Edwards.
Yes, Mayor, council members, been a while since I've had the opportunity to talk to you guys, so I appreciate the opportunity. And before I get started, excuse me, just want to say I appreciate the presentation you made to me at the Dome. That one caught me by surprise. So. Anyway, much appreciated. We need to, on July 1st, SPS filed a motion with us and with the Public Utility Commission to basically go back and collect the revenue from the true-up period of the rate case. If you remember, the original rate case was filed February of 2021. It was ultimately settled in May with a final order of 2022. The rates to that case went into effect March 1st of 2022. So under the law, SPS has the right and the ability to go back and true those rates up as if those rates had been in effect all the way back. Normally, it's to the 155th day after they file the rate case. But in a previous agreement with SPS, we've allowed, and the PUC has approved, going all the way back to the 35th day after they filed that original rate case, which would have been March 15th of 2021. So they're truing up really a year of the rate that would have been in place had the rates been approved. Normally, the rates are approved 35 days after they're filed, unless the city suspends or denies that case. Then that sets in motion all the things that you guys have been through. So the actual filing for approval, actually, if you remember, the original rate case was filed at a $144 million increase in base rates. That case ultimately settled at about $88 million of base rate increase for SPS. So the filing for the true-up period is $89 million. So it's right in the money. It should have been 88 if it's an exact year, roughly. But then, of course, there's two other reconciliation cases we're truing up, kind of kicking them all into one. So that's kind of de minimis, the reason for it's a little bit more than the 88 million, but it's real close. So basically, this resolution will deny their increase. And SPS that's not a bad thing. That's really what they want, is for us to deny that that application. That way they roll it over into a PUC would take action on it. And these surcharge cases and fuel reconciliation cases, they run really fast through the PUC. This charge will likely be implemented October 1st, and it'll go for 12 months. It'll roughly be about a 9% surcharge on your base rate for 12 months. So we'll go back and true that up. So be happy to answer any questions council may have.
And that doesn't, that's above what they're charging us right now.
Yes.
And that was just, and that didn't come to the cities because it wasn't affected of the base rate, is that correct?
Yeah, they make their money on the base rate. Then, the other part of the equation is the fuel consumption. That's the other part of the bill. But we're talking about base rate here.
Right,
In other words,
okay.
like our city's base rate's somewhere around $16 a month. I'm not sure, I can't remember what SPS, but we're talking about a percentage of that, not a percentage of your entire bill.
So that's the only thing that has to come to the cities is the base rate, not where they're adding on this from that winter storm that they're adding on now?
Well, it depends on what they're adding on. Some of that could be depending on, if it affected operations, but those are usually winterized and normalized over a period of several years. Okay. Winter Storm Uri did not materially affect us up in this area like it did down in South Texas. So, but there could be some of that in there. I'd have to really get into the
Oh, okay.
numbers to let you know.
I was just curious.
Where it's getting confusing right now is because we have about 3 proceedings
Right.
overlapping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is the last proceeding from this is the last action item from the last full rate case.
Correct.
And so they're getting ready to file another rate case, which you've been talking about, and then they've got the fuel adjustment
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, the fuel adjustment is the one that doesn't have to come to the city,
Correct.
right?
To kind of answer your question, the cities have original jurisdiction over the base rates,
Right, okay.
the services, and the tariffs that SBS charges, as well as the gas company, although that goes through the Railroad Commission. I
Right.
know y'all are doing, the next item is on
Yeah.
that one too. Fuel costs are basically they're pass-through.
Okay.
And of course, when they reconcile fuel costs, that just goes straight to the PUC.
Okay.
The reason this is coming before y'all, this is a surcharge of the base rate case that was
Okay.
just
Makes
settled.
sense.
So it does deal with base rates.
In the end, the way to look at that is so they're going back and collecting that revenue, but the only way for this surcharge not to have had to go on the bill was to allow them to implement the rate they proposed
Right.
at the very beginning, which was
$44 million.
$44 million of a base rate increase. So we fought it, saved the taxpayers $80 million, which, so this 9% will be less than what you would have paid if we hadn't denied it to begin
Makes
with. So it seems like we're adding a bunch of stuff on, but in the end, it would have been less than if we had just said, okay, do whatever you want.
Well, what is the benefit from us denying it when they're just gonna go and, right, I mean,
Well,
I guess
it's a, regulatory lag in Texas is terrible. The way, really, we need a new form, but that's the legislature job, not our job.
Okay.
We're just having to follow the procedure that the legislature has laid out. Now, I will say, down in South Texas, ERCOT, that's, competition, but
Right.
you choose your electric provider. Here, the cities are the competition. We're the ones that keep the utility companies honest. And that's what it does. The reason it takes so long, it's a long negotiation. We have consultants and we review their rates. Is that just, is that reasonable? Is that just? Is that fair to all involved? And it's more than just the cities. You've got industry, you've got other interested parties. There'll be 10 or 12 people at or 10 or 12 groups at some of these meetings when we're negotiating rates. And of course, SBS really only cares about one thing. They care about the total dollar amount. And then you have to come to an agreement on rate design, which that's the reason these things take a year to settle. And there again, the cities have it easier because when we do a budget, we can set our rates based on the budget. So what you guys are going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Well, a utility company, they look back a year and they set their rates based on what happened. And then that's the reason you're coming up to a true-up period because, these rates would have been in effect March 15th of 2021. They didn't go into effect till March 1st, 2022. So you got 50 weeks of rates, 11 and a half months that they're due that revenue. And then this is what that is.
But historically, by contesting that we're saving money, historically, that's what's happened in the past, right?
Correct. Rate cases are very expensive. It's probably, I haven't seen the cost of the total rate case. It would not surprise me that both our costs and SBS's costs are probably around $6.5 million. But there again, we're talking about, we lowered the initial ask from $144 million
Right.
per year
Right.
down to $88 million per year. So it's just, it's a long, drawn-out, expensive process, but ultimately,
It's like dealing with a used car salesman.
It is.
Not slamming car salesman, I'm just,
And in SBS's defense, I think, we have some of the lowest rates in the state of Texas. And that's because we are a bundled utility. And I'd love to see it stay that way. Because you go to South Texas, right after some of that, your people were getting bills for 1 month into thousands of dollars.
We allow a monopoly. Okay, so it is a government-allowed monopoly. So the give and take between what is fair is the cities, I mean, we can't run the business in the ground, or we have no gas or no electricity. So the arbitrator is the Public Utilities Commission, and this is kind of the dance that goes with having a government-approved monopoly. So electricity here is essentially a monopoly that the municipalities agree to, and the same way with gas. That's another way to explain.
It is. yeah.
And even if you
They
like
have
your
no
car
competition.
salesman,
They have no
We-
competition.
You guys are their competition. Right. So, regulatory agent, you're the regulators is really who you are.
Okay, but I understand why we deny it in the beginning, to save that money, but why, I mean, this is gonna happen no matter what, because
Well, it-
Well,
it says
but
in there,
it's
if
still,
they're gonna just
this-
appeal it right to the, why?
Correct.
I mean, what is the benefit to us that we are denying? I'm just curious, I don't
Well, the
really
benefit
understand.
is, let's go ahead and get this rate in place, because let's expedite this process, because we're also paying interest on that money. Okay, if you read the memo I put out, there's like
Yeah.
$5.6 million in interest on that 80-some odd million dollars of the true-up cost. So the sooner we get it settled and started, the sooner it gets paid for.
the denial is to make sure that it gets to the PUC, because
Oh,
we're just one.
that's what I was trying to
Right,
figure out.
we're just one
Okay.
city, so if we all deny it, it goes to the PUC, and the PUC can make one
Got
decision
it,
for the
got
whole
it.
region.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
And so
I
that's-
didn't
yeah.
understand what the purpose of the denial was. I'm sorry.
The
Now I
point
get
of-
it.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't
No,
explain it very well then.
Yeah, the point of
That's my fault.
AXM and all of
I'm out
that
of practice.
is so that we can be handled as a service
Okay,
region.
makes sense. I didn't ask the question very well, but now I understand. Thank you. Got
And to
it.
some degree, they may over-ask to kind of force our hands to do it this way. Is that in the realm of possibility? They may
If
ask
I
for
was
more
wanting
money.
to ask for something, I always ask for more than what I That's just business.
Well, I think going back to Robert's comment, so it's like, even if you really like your car salesman, would you pay the price that he is, quote you just without any negotiation? I mean,
Yeah.
we're not saying we don't like Excel, and we're not saying we don't have a good relationship with them, but
Let's check the blue book,
do we want the Mercedes, or, are we happy with the Chevy?
Right.
I'm a Ford man myself. But I drive a Honda.
Anyone have anything else on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to adopt Resolution R-018-22 denying SPS's proposed surcharge related to the PUC dockets 51802, 51644, and 52446, authorizing the city of Borger's continued participation in Alliance of Excel municipalities, authorizing the hiring of legal counsel and consultants, and requiring SPS to reimburse the cities for reasonable costs of legal and consulting fees.
Second.
All in favor? And it passes.
Thank y'all, council.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you for all your service and all. Item 12, consider and take appropriate action on Resolution R-019-22, denying the rate increase proposed by Texas Gas Service Company and directing Texas Gas Service Company to reimburse the city its reasonable rate case expenses. Mr. Spratling.
So kind of much like we just did with the electric company, now we've got a case for the gas. And so I think, inflation, just like everybody else, so they're trying to kind of recover some of that cost. The biggest issue for us in this case is Texas Gas's proposal to consolidate service areas. So with Excel, we've got the Excel Alliance of Municipalities, because we want to handle everything as a panhandle service area. Well, Texas Gas is more spread out, so the only two communities they serve in the Panhandle are Borger and Skellytown. And so we're in our own service area right now. This case,
And they recently acquired it from another company.
they bought, it was part of Southern Union for quite a while, but it's been Texas Gas now for quite a while too.
Has it?
Yeah. It's-
I think longer than you think. We were used to Southern Union Gas, but it's mostly, Texas Gas is a division of One Oak, and I think that might be what confuses some people. But what they're proposing to do is to combine our service area with two others. North Texas, their North Texas Service Division, which is Weatherford, and their West Texas, which is El Paso. And so when they combine one service area, that would make the rates consistent amongst those service areas. where it gets interesting is unlike electricity that encompasses just about the entire panhandle and all of its production and generation is here and we all have access to it. On the gas side, it's a little different. The gas supply going into El Paso is different than the gas supply coming into Borger, which is different than the gas supply going into Weatherford. And so what the consultant's worried about is like, for us, what they're wanting to make all the rates even across the board to get that $13 million increase in base rates that they're asking for. So that, for us, by the way, that they're proposing to shift more to the base rate and then a less consumption of increase. And of course, most utilities, we've kind of done that a little bit with the water and stuff because the base rate is consistent. You can plan on that to where consumption is more unpredictable. But based on what the rates were in Weatherford's area and El Paso's area, we would have the largest increase because we had the cheapest rates. And so that's what we kind of want to get to and see what's going to happen. So the base rate increase for the small residential is a 27.8% increase, plus the 21% increase in fuel usage. So, we're looking at almost a 45% increase on the average bill. The whole bill. But that's not the fuel, just like electricity, there's a fuel, cost of fuel. So, you've got your consumption amount and then your base rate. So, I mean, the dollar amount, it's 45%, but the dollar amount is $25 a month, give or take, which is not unsubstantial. But anyway, so much like what we just did with Excel, this would deny that rate, kicking it back to the Railroad Commission. So the Railroad Commission oversees the gas system in Texas, unlike the electric that's overseen by the Public Utility Commission. But the process is somewhat similar. Our process and involvement in this will be a little easier because we're mainly just kind of concerned in how those rates divvy out amongst the service areas. El Paso's hired 5 independent subcontractors to represent the city of El Paso and all of this, so the rates are going to be very well studied and looked at, so we're just going to kind of be focusing on that.
And they've already merged. There's nothing we can do to keep that from going on.
The Railroad Commission generally has been very favorable to merging service areas. There is efficiencies in that. I don't, I think it, just like it makes sense for Excel, it does make sense for them. We just need to make sure that our taxpayer, if they're going to raise the rates by $13 million and Borger's 1% of the population, we want to make sure that we're absorbing 1% of the rate increase and not 30% of the rate increase.
And like the AXM represents, who's representing
This,
us?
it's the same law firm that represents
Okay.
the Excel municipalities, but we don't have a committee because we're just one city.
Okay.
So this is me
But there-
talking directly
okay,
to
but
the
there
law
is a
firm.
law-
Right.
okay.
And that Herrera law firm.
Okay, well, yeah.
And that's what they do. They helped us on the last, we had a gas rate case 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Of course, it was just a simple one, but we had them look at it just to make sure it was okay. At that point, they weren't combining. So now we're combining. The question here for us, like I said, is the service areas are geographically very, very different. A single panhandle service area for electricity makes sense. We're all right next to each other. Trying to say that Borger's like El Paso,
Right. So are you saying that,
you can ask Brandon over there if Borger's like El Paso.
are you saying that we do have representation to make sure that we only get the amount of rate that
Well,
should be coming to
We're
us?
going to fight for that.
Okay, we are going to fight.
That's what denying.
Denying it goes back to the Railroad Commission, and then you have the right to be represented at that point?
Right, and that's why, part of this is reimburse the city's reasonable rate case
Okay.
expenses, which is Herrera's law
Okay.
firm's expenses and
Okay.
taking our point of view. Now, like anything else, there's no guarantee that the Railroad
Right.
Commission is going to side with us, but if we do nothing,
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
what you see is what you get. So, And the way it looks right now is that the Borger Skellytown ratepayers will pay a higher percentage of the base rate increase than the Weatherford El Paso ratepayers. Now, some of that's because they've been paying higher gas rates for a long time, but,
And that could be when a monopoly is not appropriate anymore.
right.
And we met Herrera, because Eddie set it up
He's been
2
here.
or 3 conventions ago,
Yeah,
so we've met him before.
yeah.
They're very good. I mean, like I said, and he's been, you know, they don't have the time and we don't have, you know, and to just represent us and to do a full rate case litigation, but like you said, we don't have, I mean, why spend more money for us to litigate and hire consultants for the same thing that El Paso's doing? And so, you know, we're AXN, we all come
So
together.
they're kind of doing like where that AXM saved from 144 million to 88. They're kind of doing that part of it, but we need to be represented on not paying.
What our rates end up
Yeah,
being. So
okay.
when, that's what you, on the electric cases, you talk about rate design. And so that's what, in this case, we're more concerned about is what that rate
Okay.
design looks like to make sure that
All right.
we don't want we want the combination to be, you know, better and more efficient, but we don't want the combination so that El Paso citizens can pay less than Borger citizens because,
Right. And if the Railroad Commission, you know, approves us paying that higher amount, I mean, that, there's nowhere to go after that.
right, and, you know, it'll be a bit of an uphill battle. I mean, there are, between Borger and Skellytown, we have what? Probably 6,000 service addresses and some bigger industrial users, but compare that to El Paso, that's like 700,000 people now. But
Thank you for answering my questions. Appreciate it.
But I still think everybody agrees that we should do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Other questions?
If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution R-019-22, denying the rate increase proposed by Texas Gas Service Company and directing Texas Gas Service Company to reimburse the city its reasonable rate case expenses.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Item 13, consider and take appropriate action to approve Resolution R-020-22, amending the 2014 fiscal policy. Mr. Spradlin.
Well, I'll make this short, and now to something maybe a little happier, but, you know, as part of our budget process, you know, we've been very financially benefited the last several years and with strong returns, and so the council has expressed their desire to increase the required reserve amount from 25% to 28%.
Yes.
So the financial policy is where that percentage is actually listed and adopted as policy by the council. So the only change I've made in this is to increase that required reserve in the general fund and the water sewer fund from 25% to 28%.
That's great. And anybody have anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution R-020-22, amending the 2014 fiscal policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Item 14, receive a presentation, conduct a public hearing, and then consider and take appropriate action to introduce on first reading ordinance O-008-22, setting the combined tax rate for the fiscal 2022 budget year at .71 per $100. Mr. Spradlin.
We'll let the screens come up here in just a second. Mash your button again, I might have screwed it up. And one more time.
You know Deidre has trouble with technology. Just kidding, Deidre. Yeah. There we go.
18.
There. On that sheet.
That's why I don't fool with that stuff.
I'm not too proud to say, hold my hand.
Did you break it?
We've had good luck in the past. It must be on my, of course, my computer just updated, so.
There's your IT guy.
Well, it's, we're not going to wait.
Can you use mine? Can you use mine, Frank?
Oh, hold on. There it goes. It was a setting. Wasn't necessarily late. Now we can. Okay.
All right.
Now we can talk about the tax rate. And so like I do like to always start these presentations, and I'll mention this a couple more times as we go through the budget process in a couple meetings, but don't forget we do have all this information available on our website, you know, for easy view, borgertx.gov. There's a link there on the homepage that says financial transparency. Right now there's a big fancy graphic that says budget and tax rate. You click on it and it'll take you to where we're all at. So as we go through our tax rate, we'll first talk a little bit about our certified property values. And so we've talked about this. I know that everybody got a little bit probably of a sticker shock when they got their appraised values in the mail this year. And as you can see, our history over the last 5 years, you can pretty clearly see that big change in appraised values this year. The nice thing is when we compare that to what our rates have done, with the next chart, they pretty much offset all of that. So I know we talked about before, after everybody got those appraised rates in, you know, a lot of people called the appraisal district and, oh my gosh, how can my property go up that much? And you're increasing my taxes. Well, the value doesn't necessarily increase your tax. What we do with the rate is how that impacts everything. And so as you can see, the city's rate has continually gone down in the last 5 years, just like the appraisals have gone up. So we've been, I think, financially prudent and helping offset some of those appraised costs. So really, most residents, I think, should be happy with the city. Your home value's gone up, which means you could sell it for more, and your taxes, at least with the city, have stayed the same. So it's really been more beneficial to the homeowners than they're going down. So when we look at this tax rate, what's our current tax rate is 0.807105 per $100 evaluation. The no new revenue rate, which that's the rate that would generate the exact same amount of money as we made last year, is 0.710323. The voter approval rate is the rate we could adopt. At and above that rate requires approval of the voters. So that's 0.93193. So we could adopt a rate up to 9311192 without needing a vote. The proposed rate that we're proposing is 0.71. So that is actually below the no new revenue rate. So this again will be a slight tax decrease over last year. So again, no vote needed and just normal public hearings. That breaks down to a maintenance and operation rate of 0.545 and an INS or debt service rate of 165. And so overall, that's a decrease of almost pretty darn close to 10 cents.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that's because the value is up. And so that's just a little bit below the no new revenue rate. So when we talk about what the comparison and impact is, so the rate is going down 12%. The average value, the average median home value in Borger went up 18%. So you can see in 2021, the median home value was $60,554. In 2022, that's $71,473. So the average tax value in 2021 was 488.73, and in 2022, that's going to be 507.46. So you can see that the appraisal actually went up more than the rate decrease is. And so when we talk about, what this indicates is that residential property value increased more than commercial property value. And so that commercial property value didn't increase at the same rate as residential property value. So we're making the same amount of money or a little less, but the average tax bill is going to go up a little bit on the average residence, because we collect taxes on everything. So I just kind of want to point that out, because it looks like we're lowering taxes, but when you look at the comparison on the median home value is going up. And so where you fit on that depends on how much your home value went up. But keep in mind, businesses aren't always appraised on property values. They have a profit calculation ability. They get to pick how they're appraised. So when we talk about appraisal issues, that's kind of one of those things. So you can see that residential values took a higher increase this year than commercial values. But our total tax levy, what we're actually applying, is going up by 0.64%. So you can see that we're only going up just a fraction of that, even though the average home tax is going up 3%. And the reason that total levy is going up, even though our tax rate is below the no new revenue rate, is because there's almost $5 million of new property on the tax rolls. So we do get to receive increased revenue from new property without impacting our no new revenue, because that revenue wasn't on the tax roll last year. So we're talking about like scooters, and if you built an accessory building or something like that. So that's why the total levy's up, even though we actually decreased the rate.
Makes sense.
So.
I have a question for you. I think I saw a pie chart on here earlier about the revenue that came in for property, personal property, as opposed to the revenue that comes in for everybody else. Could you state for the public what that percentage is? I mean, everybody, oh, our taxes are so high, but like they're very low concerned for what the community is actually bringing in from other sources other than our property.
Right, so property tax in the general fund is about, this year, I think, is going to be a 23% of our total revenue. And so what's funded, and so the general fund, that's police, fire, streets, parks, administration, code enforcement, planning and development. So of the operations that we provide to the citizens, 23% is paid by property tax.
I just think everybody needs to know that.
Yeah.
You know,
And so, we sales tax, so our estimated budget for property tax, I believe, is 2.6 million. And that presentation will be at the next council meeting when we go over the budget. But property tax is budgeted at almost $4 million. Sales tax is budgeted at almost $4 million next year. That's almost twice our property tax revenue. And then, of course, we have the charges for service for solid waste, and then our industrial districts. So we're in a very good position because we have a lot of big revenue sources. Most cities have 2, property tax and sales tax. And we have 5 pretty good, well-distributed revenue sources.
Yeah. And we do offer.
Here at page 37, I see property tax is 17%.
17%, I think.
Sales tax is 23.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually less than what you said. And it's a decrease, because
Yeah.
it was in the 20s, and historically has been in the 20s.
Yeah, because we've continued to reduce rates. This council's, reduced the rates the last 3 years now, so.
it means you're doing a good job.
Yes, he's doing a good job.
Yeah. And a lot of people compare us to cities that don't have a paid fire department as well.
Thank you. We got a mess.
Other questions? So now if there are no questions, you need to conduct a public hearing.
Okay, I can do that. At this time, we will open a public hearing, if anyone has anything they'd like to say. And I see none, so we will close the public hearing. And Garrett, I'm a little confused, I don't know why, but we do.
So now you need to introduce
yeah.
the ordinance.
Okay. Is that with a motion? What?
Yeah,
Okay.
now we're just a
Sorry, y'all, I'm
normal,
so
normal
confused.
ordinance now.
I apologize, I really am, okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to introduce on first reading ordinance 0-008-22, adopting a combined tax rate of 0.71, that's good enough, cents per $100 valuation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes.
I didn't know if you needed all those zeros in there or not.
Sorry, I got a little out there.
No, you're good. I put those in one item this year. We, in the past, have broken them out, but
Item 15, receive the fiscal year 2023 proposed operating budget, schedule a public hearing for September 6, 2022 at 6:30 PM, and then consider and take appropriate action to introduce on first reading ordinance O-009-22, adopting the fiscal year 2022 operating budget. Mr. Spradlin.
And so I'm not going to say much about this today. We will have a full presentation and PowerPoint during the public hearing at the September 6th meeting. So this is just the first action in receiving it. You also did receive your printed hard copies today to review. The book and all of that is on the website for the public to view at borgertx.gov. I will point out kind of the one thing that's different in this ordinance from years past is we do have two sections related to the EDC's incorporation into the city's financial structure. So there's a section that actually establishes the Economic Development Fund. And then there's a section that provides the Board of Directors and the Executive Director the authority for budget adjustments as long as the overall budget doesn't change. The same authority that you give the city manager every year. And this authority you've given the EDC, but it's normally been in their independent separate resolution. So now that they're going to be part of the city's financial structure and budgets more combined, that adds to this resolution. So other than that, everything's pretty standard. And again, we'll have a big, nice, full presentation on September 6th. I knew there'd be quite a few things on this agenda, so I thought it'd be better to push that to the 6th, and in the evening, some more people might be able to watch it. But I'll answer any questions you got right now.
Garrett, I just had one question, and it was, the budget, the expenditures was 46 million. But, okay, and I know and I think it has to do with capital projects, but I just wanted to be sure I was understanding that because the revenue does not equal that.
Right, so, keep in mind that we issued $4 million in debt for the 10th Street
Okay.
reconstruction project. We received that revenue this year, but we're going to spend it next
Okay.
year.
I thought there was something to that, but I remember you telling us.
We received all that, the CLFRF funding this year, but we budgeted expenditures for housing incentives and all of those
Yes.
projects next year.
Okay.
We transferred $3 million, over $3 million from the water sewer reserve into the water sewer capital for the well field expansion. If we ever get our test holes drilled, we'll start spending some of that money, but it looks like most of that money will be spent next year.
Okay.
The operations of the city, the general operations are balanced.
Okay, so that was just really capital projects that we have.
Right, and
Okay.
so when you look in the budget book, if you look at the fund details, the general fund expenditures match the general fund revenue,
Okay,
and the water sewer fund expenditures match the water sewer fund revenue.
okay.
The difference is in those capital funds where we've been blessed to be able to start doing more capital projects, and so that's made the budget. That's kind of why I've started doing it a little more like this, because we've got multi-year projects going out. So,
Yes.
when you've got multi-budget year projects, you just can't balance every fund because revenue and expenditures are going out in different points.
Okay.
But when you see those charts separated, you can tie general fund and water sewer operating revenues to expenditures.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any questions or anybody have anything else? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that ordinance O-11-21, making appropriations in support of the general operation of the city of Borger for the year beginning October the 1st, 2021 and ending September the 30th, 2022, be approved on final reading.
Second.
All in favor? And it passes.
And also, we're good to just say we need to schedule a public hearing for
Oh,
September.
yeah, that's right. Oh,
I forgot to add that, I'm sorry.
okay. And so is that,
And I moved to schedule a public hearing.
okay, yeah, because it's not in the.
Yeah, I
motion, I'm
didn't
sorry,
update the
okay.
bottom of that one, I'm sorry. If you read it from the item title,
Will you, who read that motion?
I moved to schedule a
public hearing.
public hearing
Yeah, just from,
on, is it going to be the September 30th? Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. Hang on a second.
September 6th
September 6th, excuse me.
at 6:30 PM.
At 6:30 PM, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Second.
That was choppy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And then item 16 is we will adjourn to executive session in compliance with Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, Open Meetings Law. The council will retire into executive session relative to Section 551.074 Personnel Matters, discuss the employment, resignation, dismissal, appointment, recruitment, and/or compensation package of the Borger, Inc. Executive Director. And I'm gonna write the time
I'll
down.
print it.
Thank you.
2:41.
Okay, we have returned to open session, and at this time, we will consider and take appropriate action to confirm the Borger Economic Development Corporation Board of Director appointment of Amy Fesser, did I say that right? Okay, as Executive Director. Yeah, that's it. Do I have anybody want to make a motion?
Motion that Ms. Amy Fetzer come on.
Okay.
Whatever. I don't know what we're doing.
You made a motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
I'm making them up.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. And welcome to the city of Borger.
Yeah.
Yes.
And item 18, consider and take appropriate action to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second. And all in favor? And we will adjourn, and thank you all for coming today.